June 14 is it, as far as history is concerned at this present. 80 years ago, on this day, German troops marched into Paris. This would have been unthinkable when war was declared on September the 3rd, 1939, and certainly was unthinkable between 1914 and 18, and indeed in 1871 during the Franco-Prussian War. During the Franco-Prussian War, they got relatively close, and indeed it wasn't Germany technically, that was besieging Paris, and in 1914 they got close enough to make people worry and certain preparations, but after that the Germans never seriously threatened Paris. Even the March 19 offensive didn't really... It ran out of steam before it could do anything, and in 1939 the assumption when war was declared and the BEF start turning up in the rest of September and October is that, well, the war will be over by Christmas. It'll be like the last war, and the battle flags are raised in May when Germany gets to the Channel 12 days after invading. After Dunkirk, the Germans start turning south, foul Rotter, and next thing you know, they're in Paris. The French government fled days ago. 2 million people have also fled in the days up to the invasion. The British, the embassy and whatnot, probably left it bloody late because they were burning papers, but they got out. The American ambassador to France, William Bullitt, is astounded at what he's seeing. And it's that very famous image of the German troops marching down the Champs-Élysées, around the Eiffel Tower and everything. The city is deathly silent, and those that are still in the city can't believe their eyes. The Bosch. As propaganda material goes, it is ripe for the picking. Goebbels must have danced around this bloody office on his club foot. So begins 4 years of occupation. 4 years of all sorts going on. And the French ordeal, the French story, is typical of any country occupied by the Nazis during the war, including the Channel Islands in a way. There will be people complicit in collaborating, helping the evacuation of the Jews. They're all packed into a sports stadium at some point, I believe in 1941-42, and with 1 or 2 buckets to use as a toilet between them, and French police were guarding them. French will serve in the Waffen SS, and famously or infamously, those of the SS Charlemagne division will be amongst those the last defending Hitler's bunker in the Battle of Berlin in April-May 1945. There will be the Vichy government. There'll be everything going on, but at the same time, of course, there's the French resistance. So that all starts effectively on June the 14th, 1940, 80 years ago. And as I say on the previous video, the first inmates at Auschwitz and Theresienstadt concentration camps respectively start turning up. Auschwitz, based in a former Polish camp with barracks, of course the Polish call it Auschwitz, forgive me, and at this point Auschwitz is, if anything, still a concentration camp. Concentration camps are not good, but the death camps took things a lot further, of course. The Holocaust as we know it has started in Poland in 1939 and is still going on in Poland, and it will start to gather pace once the Germans invade Russia in a year's time. But presently Auschwitz is just another camp, and it has the advantage, if that's the right word, of being far to the east from where all the action is happening. There will still be Germans at the end of the Second World War for whom the Jews have gone east. Mothers will tell their children during the war as a warning, stop misbehaving or I'll send you up the chimney, I'll send you east. People knew but didn't know. They knew but didn't care. So the little seeds of history have started on this day. At the same time, on June 14th, as it says in my day today, but Spain occupies the international zone Tangier. Franco was, keeping his boots clean. Spain is an interesting facet of the Second World War if they had joined the war effort. Hitler certainly tried, but he said it was like pulling teeth when he met Franco. And that was after the armistice with France, because Hitler came by train through France. There's various what-ifs. The greatest one, of course, is Operation Felix, which would have captured Gibraltar, and I'd imagine Hitler would have made use of Gibraltar before handing it over to Franco properly, because they who control Gibraltar effectively controls the Mediterranean, or at least the entrance to it. So had Gibraltar fallen, Malta would probably have gone with it, or if Malta had fallen, then Gibraltar, and the Mediterranean would have become an Axis lake. As it is, Gibraltar stays in British hands. It still is British technically, and Spain stays well out of it. Franco just stayed away for common sense, and then afterwards, after the war, until Franco's death in 1975, what does the rest do effectively? Use Franco, or get Franco to help him out resisting communism, sort of chummied up to Franco, lest he get toppled by communism or whatever. So yeah. So you have that image of victorious German troops, Sixth Army and the rest, marching down the Champs-Elysees, smiling happily, taking one more in the light, taking the salute, and the Germans think, I imagine, surely German leaders, the generals anyway, standing in Paris must have been pinching themselves, because as I was saying, the last war, which all of the generals would have fought through at least, it'll be gobsmacking, surely. 1914, 18, I was up to my arse in mud, covered in lice. My friends are being killed every day. I'm scared shitless. And then in the Second War, I'm in Paris, never having got near it in the First War. World at War, when they covered the fall of Paris, show ended, I believe, if I remember the episode, with the marching troops and Laurence Olivier's brilliant narration, saying that effectively the majority of these men will die in Stalingrad in the bitter cold. And it's a potent image, and ever since then I always look at certain photos and clips from the Second World War of men anyway early in the war, thinking to myself, well, did they die at Stalingrad? Did they die somewhere else in Russia? Did they die in the ruins of Berlin? But for now, Germany is riding high. After June 14, everything starts falling into place as far as the Germans are concerned. Verdun falls the day after, which it never fell during the First World War. All untold amount of men on either side, the French and the German sides, died in trying to defend or capture it. Operation Ariel starts the evacuation of BEF troops, and then Pétain becomes Prime Minister of France on June 16th, and then famously becomes head of the Vichy government. From hero, a fantastic example in history of going from hero to zero. So anyway, we won't go through the whole thing, but essentially, where's mine? Yes. As I say, Operation Ariel is going to be the evacuation of the remainder of BEF forces, and so now went relatively unnoticed unless you were there, and indeed it got crushed even by Churchill, in case, as I was hopefully trying to say, and indeed until recently was largely forgotten, was the sinking of the Lancastria, which was at Saint-Nazaire, where some of the evacuees were taking place. Now, no one knows the exact number still of how many people were on the Lancastria. She was evacuating anyone from France, French troops, British troops, civilians. I believe there were some British civilians evacuating on it, and French civilians. there's a conservative estimate that could have been as many as 6,000 people in it. Now, if I clicky on Wikipedia and you think, well, this is cheating, you're meant to be talking, well, as I say, I like to get my facts right, and even though Wikipedia, anyone can write it, my lecture was going to fail anyone that it was going to automatically fail anyone that put it in the bibliography. I want to have a look at it. Yes, its capacity was 1,300 passengers, and where is it? Embarkation. She had apparently she was in Norway. There you go. Estimates of 4,000 to 9,000, well over her maximum. Even when she evacuated troops from Norway, they didn't come anywhere near that. And health and safety would have a bleeding heart attack. But in all seriousness, it wasn't. It was embellic of what happened generally, as far as the British were concerned. There was a couple of ships nearby, I believe they were railway ships or some such, that were destroyed by the Luftwaffe, and the Luftwaffe were circling overhead. You know, the Stukas were coming and all the rest of it. And the captain of the Lancashire sort of hesitated, I'll take a few more, and you know, boats are coming up to Lancashire as well to offload. And he's like, well, fine. And some, you know, the Navy, I think, are getting a bit twitchy because there's a ship that is not safe in any sense of the word. And she starts to leave, but it's too late. The Luftwaffe attack. And they reckon as many as 4,000 people died. She went down. Let's have a look. I believe, let's have a look. Yeah, hang on. Luftwaffe 10 to 4, where was it? Well, at least it was within an hour or so, if not under that, much more under that. She went down with most of the people on board. And because of the fact no one knows for sure how many were on her to begin with, no one knows for sure how many died. And being British, I say being British, they sang songs in the water. It was largely to keep themselves going, but also to let any rescuers know, well, without the battle, and there'll always be England. So I'll close that page. Churchill said essentially, you know, that we've had a lot of bad news lately. Let's just keep it quiet for now. We'll make it public on X date in 1940 whatever. And, you know, I'm sure he felt the loss of those people. I like to think he did. He wasn't a heartless bastard entirely. Unfortunately, it seems, not out of malice, Churchill forgot, or somebody forgot, to make the news public when the time came. It happened again in the war. Bethnal Green, the crush in 1943 was sort of kept quiet. Various other events were suppressed so as not to depress the public, because after all, you know, bad news, you've had enough of it, like the corona, I suppose. So that's still in spite of that, they're still evacuating from Saint Nazaire. And then, where are we? Well, that's still carrying on. That's my Operation Ariel video. If you forgive me, I've made notes of what videos I'm going to do them for. Sorry, I don't want to be rude. You get a nice shot of my face. Bet George Lucas never had this problem. So that's Operation Ariel. What are we going to do next? The armistice. Boom.